Hey guys, back at you with the JK Experience here. I got my man, Dr. Benjamin Ritter. Now, this guy has got quite the resume. He is a leader and career coach. He's talent development executive, international speaker. He's a podcaster. He's an author. He's a mentor, and he's very passionate about guiding leaders into finding and creating, sustaining a career that they love. Now, I love this. Like, this is obviously, you guys, as you listen to this, to the podcast, you know, like that is our heart. That is where we're at. And I really enjoy bringing other professionals on that's what their passion is too. Now, I want to start with this story. Ben, if you don't mind, I can call you Ben, right? We discussed that. We're okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, you can call me Eric, John, Joe. I mean, I already got the title in, so we're good now. It's fine.
Awesome, man. Well, we'll refer to you as Ben. But if I do get into a really heavy conversation, I'm gonna say, all right, doctor, here we go. Like, what do we think on this, doc? Here, you've spoken to like companies such as Amazon and DoorDash and Google, Pinterest and Yelp. And I mean, first of all, I think a lot of the people that are listening to this story, they're like, oh my gosh, like that would be one day a goal of mine. You've already accomplished this. How did you do it? Like, how do you get in and speak with such great companies and do what you're doing and do what you love to do?
Yeah, everyone is still human, no matter what company they work at. And so they operate the same way. You know, I'd say, you know, a lot of these opportunities came from just being consistent and then luck of the draw. You know, someone from Google is looking for leadership development, and I work with them as a one-on-one coach. That person then presents to their department about their experience with me.
Yeah.
Then I get, you know, 2 or 3 more people from their department, and then it just cascades from there. You know, so it's, when you think about, oh, I really want to get into this company, you know, if you put it on a pedestal, you're actually going to limit your ability to access that. So if you treat everything equally, but have the strategy that is going to build relationships, and then you bring it when you have that opportunity, things are going to work out. So a lot of these big companies, you know, I use the names because it makes people's eyes get bigger.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's not like having them as a client has made my business, right? They were, you know, a percentage of my coaching clients, you know, they were a percentage of my workshops. And it helps bring in other business. You know, so often, like, I work with entrepreneurs, I work with leaders, and like, if I can just get this company, then I'm set. No, you're going to still have the same problems. You're still going to have to create other income streams. You're still going to have to figure out what's next for your career. The culture might not be the best fit for you. And honestly, it usually isn't. With the people that I've worked with, but it's kind of like this bucket people need to check to prove to themselves that they can do it.
Sure.
Which I'd say, like, let's find other ways to check that bucket.
Well, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because I will tell you that I was guilty of that. You know, when I first started podcasting, or when I first started venturing out into branding myself, is like, man, if I just made that connection, or if I was just on that podcast, or if I just had that guest on, that's going to be the turning point. And you're absolutely right. It's not the turning point. Now, is it a turning point in the sense of maybe giving you more confidence? For sure. There's no doubt about it. Giving you more credibility? Absolutely. All of those things, work. You said it perfectly. We're like, hey, I put those on my resume because not only have I done it, but it also helps people realize that I have spoken to these big corporations as well too. I think one of the things that I'd really love for you to dive into is that, a lot of entrepreneurs, especially the guys and the gals that are listening to our podcast, you know, they're in the grind of things. They're in the I call it base camp 1, right? And they haven't got to that peak yet. And they also know too, when they get that first peak, they know that there's so many more mountain ranges that they have to accomplish and conquer too. But it's not like you knew that this is something that you were going to do from an early age, whatever. Like, you have a great story behind how you actually pursued this career, and I'd love for you to share it.
Yeah. And just one more note, by the way, because I think it's so important to hit home. You know, I have friends and as well as past clients who thought that, you know, if I get on this talk show, or I get on this news channel, or I get this TED talk, I'm set for life.
Yeah.
And they get it. They do the thing, sometimes spending, you know, tens of thousands of dollars a month to get that thing, because you can pay for this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And nothing happens. it's like, and they actually, it'll be like the worst month they've had in business or even in their career, because they were counting so much on this experience and they invested so much time in preparing for it that they let go some of the things that actually worked, like the things that actually got you money or the things that built relationships. I think it's really important. It's great to be exciting about an accomplishment, and that accomplishment could create some pretty massive change in your life or at work.
Yeah.
But it might not. And so it's like, it's constantly trying to find the thing that's going to knock the dominoes over, but it's not one domino. It's almost like you constantly are playing, you're playing multiple games to see which one falls over.
Yeah. Well, and
so really wanted to,
Well, and I think you're also stacking the dominoes too, right? You got to stack them. They're just not there, right? So who cares if you knock one of them down? But if you haven't stacked 100 of them, you're not going to create any momentum anyway. So no, I really appreciate you diving into that. Okay, so you got to tell the story, man, because it's a powerful story.
Yeah, and so this story too had a couple dominoes right before one got knocked over and started rolling with it, and even other dominoes I was playing with hit a dead end. And so with my story specifically, so I've been a coach, I've been a talent development executive now recently. I operate in the field of organizational leadership with a focus on coaching. For the past, I've been kind of coaching in some way, shape, or form for about 10 years, and I've been kind of doing exactly what I'm doing now for about 5 or 6. But this wasn't always the case. Like you said, I didn't know this is where I was going to be. And I tell people, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I know what my values are. I know that I like doing the things that I'm doing that bring me fulfillment, but there are other ways in life that I can apply those values. So if something changes, I'm still going to operate in a way that is meaningful to me. It just might not be in the application that I'm doing. It might not be coaching. It might not be workshops. It might not be speaking. Like, who knows? Yeah. But if it brings me fulfillment, something that I want to learn, that's what I'm going to be doing. But lately, this is what I'm doing, right? And lately is because I don't see a change, but who knows?
Yeah.
So I was working in healthcare, and I was at that moment, about 5-6 years into my career in healthcare. And I was at a point that, now looking back and reflecting on it, I realized that I was I was playing the victim. I blamed my job for not being fulfilling. I blamed my leadership for not being inspiring. I blamed my career for just not being what I needed it to be. And so that means I would go into work and try not to work. I don't know if any of you have been there before, but you don't raise your hand for extra work. You do just the bare minimum to get by. You don't invest in relationships. You don't stick around for lunch. I immediately left, went to the gym, spent 2 hours out at lunch, came back, and then ducked out early from work. And it would get up and I would look around, make sure no one was actually looking for me or could see me, and then I'd skip out. And so I was actually working harder to not work. And at the same time, being pretty resentful towards the job, and then taking that resentment, and it hurt my relationships. It hurt my family. It infected my social relationships. It affected overall my mental health, my physical health as well. And then luckily one day I was walking to work, and I was kind of just paying attention to the people around me. I have this thing where I look people in the eyes. It developed when I was kind of learning how to be social. And I noticed, I was like, wow, it's like looking in a mirror. Every single person looks like they feel like I do.
Wow.
And what's just crazy to think about at the time is I was a coach. I was a dating and relationship coach at that time. I was working with people to have more confidence and stop being a victim. Yet for some reason, and I think a lot of us go through this, they don't think their career applies to the same rules. They don't think that they can be proactive in their career. They don't think they can take control of it. They don't think they should have a say in it. They think that whatever happens is what they have to do. And so luckily something snapped, and I woke up and I realized that I was playing the victim, that I was having a little bit of a pity party, and that I was blaming my environment instead of really blaming how I was acting in that environment. So I did a career audit. Now when I take clients through, as I looked at the things that I loved to do, I looked at my strengths and my talents. I looked at the things that I wanted to learn. I looked at the things that I was passionate about. And I came up with, wow, okay, I love coaching. I've done it for myself. I'm doing it for other people in different areas. At the time, I actually I received a federal grant for free life coaching for public health professionals a couple of years back, because they were trying to basically throw funds to help public health professionals become more motivated and inspired and productive. And I was one of the receivers of those funds, as well as I was selected for a 16-month leadership training program. And so I had my own kind of coach at the time too, in terms of leadership development. And I was having incredibly negative experiences with our leaders. Basically, I was the person that people would come to cry to after they would talk to our VPs. So it's
wow.
putting all this together in terms of my strengths are coaching. I have this background in coaching kept coming up, and I was a coach kind of in my side business. And then I saw an issue with engagement and job satisfaction and motivation in the workplace. Then I went through that as well. I was a super high achiever, I was promoted into an executive level role in healthcare without even trying. To kind of see all these things came together to be like, wow, my organization is letting me just waste away, actually hurt their company when they could be utilizing me in a way to benefit them. So this is something that I want to do. I want to prevent me from happening again to other organizations. So I went to my boss and I said, look, I want to get involved in this type of work and talent development. How do I do it? She said, great, go help out this part of the company. I started, I thought I was on my path. Lo and behold, we got acquired for the second time. Everything I was working on got stopped. Everyone I was working with got fired. And I was kind of left again, kind of being like, okay, I know what I want to do. Now, how do I do it?
Yeah.
So then I started looking for a job. Didn't know what I know now about how to get one. Couldn't convince someone to let me pivot. So I said, well, what do I know how to do? Well, I know how to start a company. I don't know what I want to start yet. And I know how to, and I know how to get.
I know how to start a company. I have no idea what I want to start. I think that's a place to be.
Yeah. Well, because then I was closing down a 5-year-old coaching company at the time. A podcast that was going for 5 years, events that I was doing, the clients that I had, and I said, this isn't where I want to take my career. So sometimes you have to eat the bull, not a bullet. It was kind of a tough pill to swallow. Yeah. But I shut it down because it wasn't aligned with what I wanted to create my brand moving forwards. And it was actually hurting me because people were labeling me as this person.
Yep.
So I shut that down. I realized it was going to take some time to rebrand, and I had to figure out how I wanted to rebrand. So I looked for ways to become credible in the space so that when I was ready to make a switch and ready to start a company, that this, young kid that wanted to go into talent and leadership development was going to be seen as credible. So I went back and got my doctorate. And I have to admit, I'm kind of a lifelong learner too. I'm kind of a nerd and geek at heart. So I got into a program after a lot of trials and ended up about 1 year into the program on the back of a napkin flying to class because it was in California and I was living in Chicago. I came up with the Live system, which eventually became Live for Yourself Consulting, which eventually became 3 C's of Self-Leadership, and now is the company that I have today.
Love it. I love the evolution in that, by the way. And I hope that people, as they're listening to this, oftentimes we see the end package and we're like, oh my gosh, that's what they started. That's, of course, they're having success because that's like, that's brilliant what they just discovered that they did right there. And you're like, well, no, there was an evolution to this, right? It was a process. One of the things that you and I spoke about a little bit earlier before we hit the record button was one of the gifts that you have and the talents that you have is you help people get unstuck. And it obviously, coming from personal experience, you felt stuck in a certain season of your life, and you do that now. You're passionate about that. I know for a fact, because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner. There are seasons in my life where I feel stuck, right? Whether it's a glass ceiling that I've got to deal with, or maybe I got this big brick wall that I just can't seem to get around. I'm trying to punch through it and it's just not working. Help us walk through maybe some tactics, some ways that people can help either identify what they're truly stuck at, and then what are the ways that they can, what are things they can do to put in their life where they can help themselves get unstuck in those situations.
Ooh, okay. You got a couple of years?
Yes, so let's go. I mean, well, you do have a doctorate, so we know those do not come cheap or easy. So yes, we're going to dive into that.
Yeah, I would have to say first, take a hard look and say, is this an emotion or is this reality? We tend to have moments, even when we're not stuck, where we think that we are. I don't know if you've ever woken up and just been like, I don't feel good today.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but there have been, usually it lasts about a week where I just question existence. Because it's like, what is the meaning of all this? Why am I here?
Right.
I don't want to work. Why are we doing these things? All of this is hopeless. It's almost on the verge of like nihilism. I know this happens to me. Yeah. And if you pay attention and you plot this out on a calendar, you'll notice that it happens pretty much regularly at certain times of the year for you.
Yeah.
Huh. So some people have it different than others. So, okay, is this a phase? Is this something that's just normal for you, or is this actual reality?
Yeah.
So let's say that it's reality. This is something where you felt stuck. you don't feel motivated, you feel lost, you feel stressed. And the danger of that is if we continuously feel stuck, we can create burnout for ourselves. So burnout is basically continuous stress without reprieve. And when we're burnt out, the extreme danger of that is the things that help us get unstuck don't work anymore. When we're burnt out, we pretty much just have to stop everything and take a break, refuel the tank, focus on us, but it takes some time to get back from that. So let's say it's reality, but we're not burnt out. We're kind of somewhere in the middle. The things that tend to create the feeling of being stuck relate to this model of the 3 C's of self-leadership that I developed. So if you're stuck, you don't have clarity, which means you don't know who you truly are, what you stand for, and you don't have goals and a plan to actually get and to apply to live a life that relates to what you actually care about. You don't have confidence in yourself, so you don't believe that you actually are capable of doing the things that you care about, or just in yourself personally. And you're not living a life, and you don't have friends, a community, a day-to-day, a job that relates to the first 2 things, right? To empowering you in terms of confidence and helping you live a life intentional that relates to clarity. So if those things tend to be the things that are missing, and when we don't have those things, we aren't able to commit to an action because we don't feel that actions are important. So feeling stuck is like I'm in a fog, I feel lost, nothing's important, nothing matters. Why am I spending my time? So if we focus on those 3 C's, we can actually start helping ourselves feel unstuck. And so happy to go in with them, and I'll pause for a sec.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And in fact, I was talking about this morning on my drive time. And I was saying, make action the goal, right? Make action the goal, because oftentimes we look at that goal and it can be, especially if you pick a really big goal, it's super intimidating and you're going, how am I going to get there? Right? Your goal is I want to make $1 million. I can't even make $100 right now. How am I going to make $1 million? And I think a lot of people that's where they get stuck because they don't even take the action. And I love how you talked about that too. Is like, if you don't have these things categorized out, if you don't have all of these identified, well, you're not going to take action. You're incapable of being able to take action. And that's really the reason why you're stuck, is because you're not moving forward on any of the decisions that you need to be making in order to achieve the goal that you want to.
And let's take that goal of $1 million, by the way, because let's say you want to make $1 million. That's something you want to work on.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I wake up tomorrow and say I want to make $1 million, that is not very actionable, like you said.
Yep.
So it's, how do we break that down into steps? And let's take one moment and pause and say, well, before we even do that, right, the first part of clarity is not, I want to make $1 million. First part of clarity is, what are my values and what do I care about? What is at the core of my attitudes and behaviors? So some people may say, okay, $1 million, you have to say, I want to change the world. That's why I want to make $1 million. You don't have to. And you'd have to get more specific. Like for me personally, I want to create organizations that people can fall in love with. And I want to help people figure out how to fall in love with organizations, right? Or their jobs and careers. That's a specific goal. And then I can trace it down to values. My number 1 value is health, right? And health can be broken down into mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical. And I can list off my other values to you. So the first thing you have to do is understand what your values are, what you care about. So let's say, for example, someone that wants $1 million, and let's just take this, let's make it materialistic, because some people have a hard time with that. Let's play with that.
Well, and I think that
my number 1 values. Sorry?
I think that a lot of people go materialistic first, and it's until they take the time to uncover it, then they realize that it has nothing to do with the materialistic part of it, right? So go ahead, keep going.
No, I like to sometimes even just play with the materialism, because some people just want to be a CEO. Cool. Okay. So so why would someone want $1 million in terms of materialism? Like, what might some of their values be as a human being at the core of their attitudes?
Yeah, like on the superficial side of it, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Why they want $1 million? Oh yeah, I mean it's security. You have it in your account. You can probably buy just about whatever you want in that aspect. You feel like you've been successful because you actually have a representation of the hard work that you've committed to. It's potentially a status, because you feel like you can be accepted by other people because maybe you're good at, they see you as being really good at your craft because you got $1 million that were made. Obviously it makes you feel good too, because you obviously were successful in that aspect. So I would say that those are probably the categories where I would define why people would want $1 million potentially.
Okay, I love it all. So let's just say security, let's say adventure and freedom. Adventure and freedom kind of be the same. So these are your values. I come up with these are my values. So I want $1 million because that's going to help me live these values.
Sure.
Great. So you have these values. Now, what are your goals based on those values? And so the goal you developed is I want $1 million. That's going to allow me to do the things that I want to do. Okay, great. This is your goal. These are your values. You know what you stand for. So when you walk into a room, someone's like, hey, what do you do? And you're like, I'm just, I'm super, really, really, really trying to create a life based on security and safety. And, first, that's my first step. And then I'm really focused on adventure and freedom. And this is how I define freedom and adventure. So this is what you stand for. So this is where you feel like you're actually living a life that's meant for you. Yeah. So now you have this big, broad goal of $1 million. And so now we'd say, okay, how am I actually going to make that $1 million? Because if you just wake up and say, I want to make $1 million today, but you don't see, progress towards that $1 million, you're going to feel stuck. So you take that goal, and let's say this goal, you give yourself a 2, 3, 4, 5-year goal, 10-year goal, set the right expectations, and you go, great. So let's say in 1 year, there's 12 months, each month, 4 weeks, potentially, and then there's days. So I have 365 basically little goals to get to that million, get to whatever that annual goal is. Mm-hmm. So when we get that granular, that truly helps us not feel stuck. That's kind of what I think you were referring to that too. So day one would be figure out, maybe this person doesn't have a job. They're like, what jobs make the most money? So that's your goal for today, to figure out what jobs make the most money. And so you do some research and you figure out, okay, so, this job makes the most money. Great. The next day, who do I know that has that job that I can go talk to and have conversations with? Great. The next day, what companies are, employ these types of people? Great. Now, the next day. And so you plot this out. That's clarity. That's true clarity.
Yeah.
Someone comes to me and honestly zooming back again and saying, my value is freedom. What does freedom mean to you? That's clarity. And so people very often that are stuck don't peel back the onion enough to define the things that they think they care about and the goals that they think they want to achieve. So I can say clarity and people go, yeah, I know clarity. Okay. Well, how long have you spent really getting clear on the things that you think you're clear about? Mm-hmm. So that's the first C.
Love it, dude. That's really good. I love that we got granular on this because once again, people can give really nebulous answers, and you were able to break it down in a very simple way. It gave extreme clarity on when people feel like they're stuck and what's the simple process for them to, even just from the very beginning. As we kind of start wrapping this up, I'd love for people, first of all, how do they follow you? How do they get connected with you? Like, you've got amazing content. You've obviously, you've earned the right to be called doctor, but I think on this show, you also earn the respect to be called doctor. So I applaud you in that. But how do people get more of what you're doing in the world?
Do people see video now on the show?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
yeah. So they'll have video and they're listening to it on.
Okay. My joke about taking off my white coat because it's really hot right now because I got the respect is not going to fall and land that well. But anyways, if people want to follow me, they can check out LinkedIn. So Dr. Benjamin Ritter on LinkedIn, you'll find me. I'm the only one there. If you send me a message, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to send a message that says something like, how can I help you? How can I be a resource? Because that's how I built my business. Yeah. So be prepared for that. Feel free just to say like, I just listened to you. It was great. It's great to be connected. Wonderful. That's great. If you want something, let me know too. Send me, just reply to that. You can find out more of my content at liveforyourselfconsulting.com, lfyconsulting.com. It lists all my media, my podcasts, some marketing speech about why you should work with me.
Yeah. Love it.
But yeah, so follow me for sure on LinkedIn and check out my website.
Okay, great. As we close this up, once again, as I've kind of mentioned throughout this podcast, is we've got a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, people that are, in the daily grind, and they're working towards that big goal or that achievement of success of what they've identified. Just any words of wisdom. What would you say to somebody right now that maybe they're pushing forward, but they just need that extra motivation or they just need that extra encouragement right now?
Okay, so you may not want to hear this, but this might motivate you. This might not. Okay, if you're striving towards something, then it's something that you care about and something that you set your heart on, and you're trying to achieve it. The thing is, when it comes to values and motivation, passion, however you want to coin it, those are motivators. So you're never actually going to feel like the things that you're working on is enough. That is the gift of those feelings. The feelings that they never let you feel like you've accomplished enough. But we forget that. We think if I don't feel like I've done enough, then I haven't achieved enough. We don't have something in us that goes, great, you don't have to do anything anymore. You've done more than enough. There's no neurochemical in our body that tells us that. There's exhaustion. There's like, I need to heal. I need to rest. But every feel-good transmitter in our body is a motivator. And so please remember that. It's never supposed to feel like enough. So you have to give yourself those breaks along the way.
That is awesome, man. Absolutely love it. That was brilliant. So, all right, Ben, or I'm going to call you Dr. Benjamin, dude. You most certainly earned that on the show for us here. So I really appreciated it. This has been an awesome interview. Thank you for taking your time. Everybody, you guys know it. The price of admission for this podcast is simply just to get into the hands of anybody else that you know will be impacted by what Dr. Benjamin Ritter had just said today. So absolutely love you all. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.